Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Well, folks, are you paying attention to Twitter and are you paying attention to all the statements coming out of the Brandon regime? Well, if you are, then you must be in tune with the narrative. Recession, Joe Biden's economic collapse in the past. Apparently, Joe Biden once again is leading the greatest economic recovery ever. At least that's what they tell you. The official June jobs report has been released. Coming out hot, 100,000 more jobs than expected. And Democrat activists and Joe Biden shills in the current White House are pushing this as the greatest economic success anyone could ever imagine or hope for. Well, once again, it just seems to be a massive, disingenuous campaign. Democrats are completely full of it, and the current White House, the Brandon regime, is totally misguiding and misdirecting the American public. Let me show you guys exactly what I'm talking about. We've got some economic news to cover, so let's roll the tape. All right, folks, the June job numbers come in pretty hot. I mean, that's just a fact. 100,000 over expected. Nearly 400,000 new jobs created in the month of June. It's a good headline, but the jobs market has been pretty decent for a while now. Nothing really has changed. But if you pay attention to what Joe Biden and the Democrats are saying, it's the greatest economic news ever.
We look at where we are economically, and we are stronger economically than we have been in history. When you look at the unemployment numbers at 3.6%, when you look at the jobs numbers, more than 8.7 million of new jobs created. That is important.
Karine Jean-Pierre saying that we are stronger economically than we have ever been in history. Yeah, I'm going to give that one a fact check false without even having to do any research at all. That is BS. Joe Biden claims
that my economic plan is moving this country in a better direction.
That his economic plan is moving the country in a better direction. But of course, not exactly. There's a stark contrast between what Democrat shills are pushing here. Once again, the same talking point we've been hearing forever, that Joe Biden is somehow the greatest economic president ever. Between their rhetoric, between what the politically biased outlets are purporting, and what the real financial and economic experts are saying. I mean, just if you Google U.S. job report for June, you can see the contrast between the headlines. Axios reports, what recession? June jobs report points to solid growth. Politico writes, no recession here. Hot jobs market tames fear of slump. Except, no. Literally, just scroll down a little bit, and Barron's and MarketWatch write, stock futures are down ahead of June jobs report. U.S. stocks open lower after stronger than expected jobs report. Having one month, especially a summer month, signal an increase in employment solves absolutely none of the core issues within the economy. This administration and these Democrat shills are doing what they always do. They're shilling and they're lying. U.S. stocks, Wall Street slides as strong jobs data fuels rate hike worries. Wall Street's main indexes slipped on Friday after stronger than expected jobs data fueled expectations of another big interest rate hike by the U.S. Federal Reserve later this month. Certainly, it solidifies the view that there's going to be a 75 basis point increase in the next 2 weeks, said Tom Plume, portfolio manager of the Plume Balance Fund. We are still where bad news is good news and good news is bad news. That's going to be the case until there's some perception that the Fed has accomplished or is accomplishing their main goal of moderating the growth of the economy. People seem to misunderstand what's currently going on with the Fed and Jerome Powell. I mean, his stated number one intention is to bring down inflation. The jobs numbers are completely irrelevant. Monthly jobs reports have been strong for the last 2 years. From the initial start of the recovery from the end of Donald Trump's last year in office, all the way through Joe Biden's first year and a half. And from what we know about the Fed, they're willing to make sacrifices with interest rate hikes that affects the job and labor market as long as it brings equilibrium and starts bringing inflation down. Democrats, of course, are taking an early, preemptive victory lap, as if 1 month of beating expectations in job growth, the jobs numbers, solves the whole issue. From what I understand, CPI data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics for the month of June is going to be released on July 13th, and from initial predictions that we're seeing right now, based on some very reputable sources, June 2022 CPI is expected at 8.7%. That's 0.1% higher than it was last month. And regardless of whether it comes a little bit above or a little bit below, if it's above 8%, that's still a problem. That's still the major problem that the economy is currently facing. Democrats want to simplify this jobs report and just say it came above what was expected, therefore we're not in a recession, therefore the economy is perfectly fine. But CPI inflation is the most important number. And you know what else is important? Wage growth in respect to inflation, which even according to Joe Biden's favorite group, Moody's Analytics, Analytics is not looking good.
Now, of course, this brings us back to the point where wages are lagging inflation. The purchasing power of incomes is declining, and that will eventually take its toll of consumer spending, and that is where we run into a recession.
Wage growth is still increasing, but it's increasing at a slower and slower pace every single month as inflation continues to ramp up or continues to remain at the same level that it is. What does that mean? That means Americans are getting poorer. It doesn't exactly line up with Karine Jean-Pierre's statement that the economy is stronger than it's ever been historically. And now we have news from a former Obama economic advisor, Jason Furman, predicting that inflation is actually shifting from goods and commodities to services, which could mean more inflation and a continued increase to cost of living for the foreseeable future.
You look at the inflation data, and inflation has been shifting from goods to services. That's concerning because services inflation tends to be more stable, more inertial. You look at things like trimmed mean or median inflation, those have actually been picking up, even while some other measures have come down. So when I look at the price data, yeah, all the volatile stuff had been raising the inflation rate to 8, 9, 10%. That's going away. But all the underlying core stuff, that might be hardening and getting worse.
Inflation is now hardening and getting worse, according to his analysis. And also in respect to Karine Jean-Pierre's totally disingenuous statement, take a look what former Obama economist Jason Furman also had to say.
Every other indicator outside the labor numbers show a slowing economy with high inflation.
Many indicators that the economy is slowing down with high inflation. No progress has been made. Not only has no progress been made in the economy or current economic conditions, but no progress has been made with this administration in respect to their complete inability to just be honest about the facts. Hashtag Biden boom is trending on Twitter as people celebrate with the Biden administration, but they are once again misleading the public on the true nature of the economy. Not only is the Atlanta Fed still predicting GDP contraction in 2022 quarter 2, meaning we might already be in a recession, but the underlying fundamentals and the indicators are not showing a booming economic recovery, but rather the continuing of a slowing economy as inflation continues to outpace wage growth, which seems like it's going to stay for a while, and we haven't seen the fallout of that just yet. And of course, as markets continue to tank with what seems to be inevitable rate hikes from the Fed right around the corner. Democrats want to tell you that there is no recession and actually it's the Biden boom, but really nothing has changed. Absolutely nothing has changed in the story. The jobs numbers were never a relevant factor here. Again, I'm not an expert, but based on my research, it seems like a quarter 2 recession is still very likely or possible. Consumer confidence and consumer spending are on a significant downward track, and that of course might lead to an earnings hit in the markets, all of which will most likely be pretty catastrophic for your 401k, and that at least to me seems to be the direction that we're heading in, not the greatest economic recovery of all time that Joe Biden keeps trying to take credit for. But of course, let me know what you guys think in the comments. That's it for me, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.